Hi Rosalind, it's Mr. Paul, and as you may or may not know, I love Mr. Men and Little Miss books. And so I thought for April 9th on my birthday, I would read you one of what I loved as a kid. So this is called Little Miss Naughty and the Good Fairy. Little Miss Naughty got up, stretched, opened her curtains, and looked out her window. "What's that?" she said, peering more closely. She went downstairs, out of the back door, and down to the bottom of her garden. "Look at that," she cried. "It's a fairy ring." On the ground at her feet was a ring of mushrooms growing in the dewy grass. "I wonder what happens if I step into the ring," thought Little Miss Naughty out loud. So she did. And what happened was that she shrank to the size of a matchbox, which surprised her enormously. "Oh, help!" she wailed. "What do I do now?" She looked around the fairy ring and noticed that there was a door in the stem of one of the mushrooms. "I wonder what happens if I go through that door," she asked herself. And she did. And what happened is that she found herself in quite a different world. Fairyland. Little Miss Naughty stepped out into a beautiful magical wood. On the hilltop in the distance was a glittering castle. Little Miss Naughty set off to see who lived there. "Who are you?" asked a voice above her. Startled, Little Miss Naughty looked up to find a fairy with a gossamer wings hovering just above her head. "Well, I'm Little Miss Good," lied Little Miss Naughty. "What a coincidence! I'm the Good Fairy. You must come and stay the night." She lied. The Good Fairy waved her magic wand and whisked them up her castle. And it was the Good Fairy's magic wand that captured Little Miss Naughty's attention all evening long. Little Miss Naughty could think of nothing but the mischief she might get up into with a fairy and her own magic wand and her own wings. That night, Little Miss Naughty was very naughty. She stole the Good Fairy's wand. She crept out of the castle and ran all the way back to the magical wood where she entered Fairyland. There she found a door in a tree which opened into a ring of mushrooms at the bottom of her garden. As soon as she stepped out of the fairy ring, she grew back to her normal size. Once Little Miss Naughty was safely inside her house, she looked at the wand in her trembling hand. She closed her eyes and waved the wand, and at the same time, she said, "Turn me into a fairy." When she opened her eyes and looked in the mirror, she saw that she had the perfect pair of fairy wings. She gave them a little flutter and felt herself rise off the floor. "Oh, what fun," she cried. "Oh, what fun I'm gonna have." The next day, flying along above the rooftops, she saw Mr. Bump walking along the pavement. She waved the magic wand and a hole appeared in front of Mr. Bump and he fell. From her perch on the chimney pot high above, Little Miss Naughty chuckled to herself. That wasn't very nice. Mm-hmm. But at that very moment, a high wall fell across the pavement just where Mr. Bump would have been walking if he hadn't fallen into the hole. "Thank goodness I fell into the hole," said Mr. Bump, peering up at the street. Little Miss Naughty flew out across the countryside, where she found Farmer Barnes looking at his field corn. With another chuckle, little Miss Naughty waved her wand, and the field of corn turned into a plowed field. But there in the middle of the field was the farmer's dog, who had been lost amongst the corn. "Oh, thank goodness, the corn disappeared, and I have found Fido," said a relieved Farmer Brown. Little Miss Naughty was very puzzled. It seemed that as hard as she tried to be naughty, things kept turning out for the best. She made it rain on Little Miss Sunshine, who could not have been any happier because her tomatoes needed watering. She created a mess in Little Miss Neat's front room, and Little Miss Neat was overjoyed because she had Mr. Messy coming for tea later that day, and she wanted him to feel at home. By the time Little Miss Naughty got home, she had never caused so much happiness in her life. She was miserable. "This thing's no good," she said, throwing the wand down on the table. "That is where you are very wrong," said a voice. Little Miss Naughty nearly jumped out of her skin. It was the good fairy. "That wand is all good because it is my wand. I hope that making so many people happy may have done you some good." "So this wand will only make good things happen?" asked Little Miss Naughty. "That's right." "And this one will never allow me to do anything naughty?" "That's right." "There is one more thing I need to know," said Little Miss Naughty. "What is it?" asked the good fairy. What's she gonna ask? "Well, where does the naughty fairy live?" She didn't change her way. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed Little Miss Naughty and the Good Fairy. Lots of Mr. Men books to choose from, so if maybe you can find one and read it yourself. Thanks.